Hello and welcome to our today's webinar about integration between JIRA and Visure Requirements, the perfect combination. In fact, the presentation is also a bit about the topic of tool integrations in general, the typical drawbacks we may have, and the benefits you may get if you have an integrated tool chain. But the entire presentation is then, of course, based on a concrete example, which is the example to integrate JIRA as a bug as a issue ticketing system with Visure Requirements as a requirements management solution. So this is the agenda for today. First, we would like to take a short look on the common pitfalls if you try to combine the different tools you typically use in a development environment, very often starting with requirements management, but later on you may also use some tools to support development or to support other disciplines like test management and so forth. And in many cases, we see at customers that some tooling is already in place, and customers start using additional tools for this and that purpose. And then, of course, there's typically at a certain point in time, there's typically the question how to combine the different tools used in the development environment, and what options do we have, and how can this be solved. Next step is, of course, that I would like to introduce our solution in this area when it comes to integration of tools. But in our case, it's not only an integration of tools. In our case, we also would like to engage you to integrate the processes that are in use. And as you will see a little bit later, the platform we can offer for these kind of integrations is quite flexible, so it can adapt to your processes. So it's not a fixed way of integrating tools. It's very, very flexible, and we will see in a demo later on one example out of many I could imagine. One basic one, to be honest, but I think for this quick introduction, it's okay to have a fairly simple example. Otherwise, this presentation may take a couple of more hours. It is intended that this session will take maximum 60 minutes. I hope that I will be able to keep it a bit shorter. And finally, in the last phase of this presentation, I will show a demonstration, a live demonstration, based on a concrete example where we will use JIRA for the creation of something we call new features, to collect new features from all over the place, from your customers or from internal sources. As JIRA is a web-based tool, it is very often widely used in organizations, so it is typically accessible to almost every employee. On the other hand, we have Visure Requirements as a pure requirements management solution, and sometimes there might be a need to combine these tools, and we will take this as an example today in a demo to show how those tool integrations may look like based on our integration platform. So what are the typical challenges you are faced with when you try to combine when you are working in an LM environment, meaning that you need to define requirements, you need to specify your requirements. Later on, you need to implement those requirements. Ideally, you would also like to test your implementation somehow. So what are the typical challenges you may have in these areas? One of course is one of these challenges is, of course, that you may want to find out the impact a certain change from a customer may have, because that's a very typical scenario in our customer base, that of course you have an ongoing development, but anyway, customers typically change their mind quite frequently, so you have to follow these changes somehow in a good way. Or, of course, you could also ignore the changes requested by your customers, but I feel this is probably not the best approach if you want to sell your product successfully. So you need to find a way how you can manage those changes requested by customers, and how you can incorporate them in your environment. If you have your requirements in place, of course, then it's the next question is, of course, how far you are with the implementation of the requirements. So which requirements are already designed, which one are maybe already coded. If we are talking about software, of course, the same holds also if you do some hardware development. You need to figure out whether your hardware is up and running, so to say. And later on, ideally, before you can deliver a product, you need to ensure that that everything has been tested properly. And all of this does typically not happen in one single tool. Usually, most of our customers are using different tools for different disciplines of the application lifecycle, and then we need to find a way to communicate in between the different solutions. There are, of course, a couple of more challenges also regarding cost, for example. So can you manage to find out how much effort and how much money you need to invest in your development over time? And finally, if you have kind of partners outside of your company doing some stuff for you, you need to ensure somehow that they also work in a proper way to deliver quality products at the final end. So as I mentioned, very often we have the situation that in organizations there are quite a lot of tools already in place and used for this and that purpose. For example, you may already have a kind of issue tracking tool like JIRA. You may already have a test management environment based on, for example, HP ALM or HP Quality Center, or many other tools are already in use. Ideally, maybe also a tool for requirements management, which might be Visure, which would be nice, of course. That's one option. Or, of course, you can also try to reuse the tools you have already in place for other disciplines. And we also faced this situation with some customers already, that those started, for example, using JIRA also for requirements management, because of course this is might be obvious to you if you have JIRA in place and you are used to it, and you have used it for issue tracking or bug tracking, for example. You may have the idea, okay, we can use it for bug tracking. Why shouldn't we be able to use it also for requirements management? And for JIRA, for example, of course, it would be possible to create a dedicated issue type called requirement, and then define certain attributes for it, and then you can probably also enter those requirements in some way into JIRA. But over time, you will probably find out that that the capabilities JIRA, for example, offers with regards to requirements management and requirements engineering are somehow weak. There's a lack of functionality in JIRA for this purpose, because the intention of JIRA is to be an issue tracking tool. And of course the same holds for all the other applications. Most of the applications out in the market have been developed originally for a dedicated purpose, and some of them might have been extended to also support some other disciplines up to a certain extent. We also claim that we may support test management within our requirements management solution, but I always point out that we only do it up to a certain extent. We do not offer a test management solution. Our solution is a requirements management solution. And I guess the same holds for JIRA. JIRA is an issue tracking tool and not a requirements management solution. And if you start using one single tool for everything, the customers typically end up in lots of tool customizations that are needed to get those functionalities that are missing in a certain area in those tools, or they create plugins and extensions and stuff like that, which are typically not supported by the tool vendor. And so over time you will get into more and more trouble with all these customizations, and it's of course quite a lot of effort to maintain these extensions and customizations over time if a new version arises and these kind of things. So that's, of course, it is one option, but it also has a lot of drawbacks. The second option would be, of course, to use different tools for different purposes. So, for example, as mentioned, JIRA for issue tracking, Quality Center for test management, maybe Microsoft Project for project management, Visure Requirements for requirements management, and so forth. Then you have different silos typically, and you can try to keep the information linked in between those different tools manually by creating nice, huge traceability matrices in Excel, for example. I have seen that at customers. Quite impressive. But of course, these kind of manual things are very time consuming, and of course it's quite a lot of effort again to keep the traceability in between tools if it's done manually up to date. And of course, if you need to enter, for example, some identifiers manually in Excel in order to create traceability between different tools, then of course this is also error prone, so you may do mistakes there. And all of this is, of course, also not the ideal solution. And then there's a third option available typically when it comes to integration, and that's taking the integrations provided by the dedicated tool vendor. So many of the tool vendors out in the market, they do offer their own integrations. Usually these integrations are point-to-point integrations, and of course, if you take those tool integrations from tool vendors, all of them, if you take one integration from one vendor and another integration from another vendor, of course those integrations look completely different. They work completely different. In many cases, they probably only support a certain use case for an integration. So typically those integrations are by far not that flexible than a real integration platform. However, we have seen that if you have already decided for a certain tool and you want to integrate that tool with another one, and the tool vendor offers an integration, for heaven's sake, we have seen very often that companies just buy this integration because they think there is no other option, without even evaluating it. And we urgently recommend also to spend some time on evaluation of integrations, and not only spending time on the evaluation of the tools themselves. So it's very important to point this out, that if you have the best tools in the market for all the different disciplines, it might be good, of course, but if you don't have the proper integrations in place to keep the information flowing over the boundaries, then you may also have some issues. So keep in mind, also spend some time in evaluation of integrations. So what is our offering now in this area? By the way, maybe just another few words about the third topic. I'll just go back to that one. We ourselves did those integrations in the past, to be honest, but we encountered in the meantime that there are better options out there in the market by means of a real integration platform, and that's the future in our opinion, and that's the reason why we ourselves, Visure Solutions, does not develop integrations on their own anymore, because we fully support the ALM platform I plan to introduce in a few seconds. And that's exactly the offering we have in place here. We call it Your Open ALM Platform by Visure. It might be used, of course, to connect Visure requirements with other disciplines like quality management, design, version control, and others by means of one single integration platform, which is capable to connect to as many tools as you like. So we do offer a platform which is able to connect to Visure requirements, but also can connect to many other tools. And the big advantage we see here in this kind of integration platforms is that we have one single platform which works in a certain way and which is highly configurable. And the way you need to configure the different integrations between the different tools is always the same. So you do not have a set of integrations which are completely different to each other. Instead, we have one integration platform which is able to connect many tools if needed. And it's up to you to decide which tools you would like to connect, and for each connection or for each pair of tools you can then configure the proper process based on the way you want to work with the integration or the way you want to work with the individual tools, and the way you configure the solution is always the same in principle. Of course, there are some small specifics for each individual tool, but the overall look and feel of the configuration is always the same. And the idea behind is, of course, also to make sure or to ensure that teams working in different products are able, or different tools are able to work together without any manual steps needed, and to transfer information manually, because as soon as you need to do so, you may miss something, and then the other party, the development team, maybe does not have full access to all the information needed and stuff like that. And this is exactly what is taken over by your open ALM platform by Visure. So we can do it in a coordinated way, and as mentioned, this can be done based on your processes, so it's highly configurable, highly flexible. You can even use this platform, if needed, also to migrate information from other tooling. So you can take this integration platform to also, for example, replace, or if you have, for example, now used JIRA for requirements management, and you found out, oh, maybe we have a lack of functionality in JIRA regarding requirements, we would like to use Visure Requirements instead for the requirements, then we can of course use the platform as well to take over the information you already have in JIRA regarding requirements, to take this information over in Visure, and then from that point in time we can continue working in Visure with regards to requirements, but still be able to use JIRA for other disciplines like task management or bug tracking, or whatever you like JIRA to use for. Just to give you a first impression how this integration platform looks like, there's no need to take a closer look in all the different fields. You can see the only idea here is to give you an impression that the configuration or the platform we offer here is very flexible, so you can define your own data mapping between the different tools to exchange the information in a proper way. And once again, this configuration is always the same, independently which tools you plan to connect. In this case, it's a screenshot for Visure and Quality Center, but as mentioned, it doesn't really matter which tools you want to connect. The configuration, the overall configuration is always more or less the same. And as mentioned, it's quite flexible, so you can really define exactly which information from which tool flows to what other tool and in what way. You can even specify, for example, attribute value mapping in case you have, for example, a status attribute in one tool with 5 values and you have a status attribute in the other tool with probably 4 values only. Then you can even define a mapping between the different attribute values. So there is no need to keep all the definitions in sync in between the different tools. This is something which can be handled also in the configuration of the integration, just as an example. And by the way, of course, this kind of configuration is something which is not done by an individual user. It is just done by some integration experts, let's call it that way. For the end user, this is fully transparent, so the end user typically does not even see that there's an integration available and running in the background. Usually we typically set this up by means of scheduled processes. That means that the information or the data exchange between the tools happens in the background fully automatically. Or of course we can also configure it in a way that it's triggered manually or based on certain events. There are plenty of options available how you can integrate the different tools using this platform. This is the quite impressive list, in my opinion, which tools are currently supported by the platform. However, if you feel that there is a tool missing which is in use in your company, we are happy to discuss that, and of course we can even extend the platform by adding another adapter to a different tool which is missing here maybe. But as you can see, there are already many tools supported. For example, the IBM Rational tools to a wide extent. Also HP Quality Center or ALM, JIRA, Subversion, Bugzilla, JIRA, as mentioned, cPine, and so forth. So there's quite a huge set up and running and fully available as of now. But once again, if you have another tool in place, maybe even a specific one you have developed on your own, the platform can also be extended to also support additional tools. And of course, this list will probably also be extended over time. By the way, Visure is missing on this slide, but of course Visure is also supported. So what's the business? What are the business benefits you get from such an integrated platform? Of course, you have a better overview over the entire project if you don't have silos anymore with different tools in place which are not connected to each other, and this will help you to answer a lot of questions. Like, for example, you can of course quickly identify the design components you need to modify if you have to change a requirement or if you have to implement a certain requirement, if you have a proper linking in place in between the requirements and the design components, which might be stored in a design tool, and connected through the integration platform. Yes, of course, test coverage is also a topic if you have different tools in place for requirements management and test management, and you can combine those via such an integration platform. Then it's much easier, of course, to find out whether all your requirements are covered by proper test cases and so forth. And of course, you can also do better decisions based on certain data if you have the entire data, which is currently spread around on different tools. If you are able to synchronize the information in some way in between the tools, then of course you can also get these kind of metrics out of the integrated solution. Yeah, collaboration is, of course, for me personally, it's one of the most important topics that you can improve the collaboration in between the different teams that are involved in the development of a product. You have on the one side, you have the business analysts working in a requirements management solution, describing the requirements, maybe also deriving a software specification or a hardware specification from a customer requirements document. And then, of course, you will probably reach a certain point in time where you need to ask your development team to implement all these nice software requirements. And then it would be, of course, nice if there's a automatic way to inform the development team, probably not using a requirements management tool. They probably use some other tooling like Visual Studio or whatever to develop the software, and they may get some tasks delivered by means of JIRA or whatever. And it would be nice, of course, if you would carry over the information from one tool to another one using such an integration platform automatically, without the need of manual interaction. And this is, of course, something which highly improves the collaboration in between the different tools. As mentioned, if you would carry over the information manually, or if you would create those linkage information which in between information stored in different tools, if you would do all this in a manual way, it would be much more time consuming. So if you have an automatic way of information exchange in place, then of course the productivity is also increased, and you will be able to deliver your products faster to the market, which is always a good point. And finally, you will also reduce costs, of course, in this area. Okay, so that was more or less the introduction. Next step here in the presentation is to give a small example process before I will do the corresponding demo. The example we took for this first impression on such an integration platform is Visure Requirements connected to JIRA. And the intention behind this is, of course, to have JIRA as a change request system or an issue tracking system to collect information from all over the place, and then to hand this information over into the requirements management solution, Visure Requirements, where the proper product manager in our example is then able to take a look at these change requests or feature requests he gets from JIRA, and then he can work, of course, in Visure to take the information from the feature request over and incorporate this information in the requirements. So we will see how this works. And the example, that's of course the topic about change requests. What we try to achieve here is, of course, to automate the handling of change requests as much as possible, to save cost here, because typically, there might be people in your organization who believe that changes are for free. They are definitely not for free, as you can see from this Dilbert comic strip. Even if someone in management seems to believe that changes are for free in general. Okay. When we talk about the combination of issue tracking, change management, and requirements management, even just for those two disciplines, there are a couple of different options how you could connect those two disciplines. One is, as mentioned, that you take the advantage of a change management tool, which is typically available in an entire organization. So it's available for everyone. Everyone is able to enter tickets in such a system typically. And so why not taking the advantage of having such a system in place corporate-wide to collect new features, for example, new product ideas from all the stakeholders in an organization, and then transfer this information into the requirements management tool to allow the requirement managers or the business analysts to work on these ideas. That's one option. Another option is, of course, to use a change management system also for tracking the changes on the requirements themselves. Another one would be you can use JIRA or a change management or issue tracking system, typically also for defect tracking, for bug tracking. So you could raise defects in such a change management tool, maybe from a requirements management tool if needed. So if you encounter some problems with certain requirements which are already approved and frozen, so you cannot just change them, then you may also raise a defect change request based on that requirement. Or if you are, of course, already in testing, you may also want to create a defect from a test execution record, which also might be stored in Visure, but if you have a test management solution in place, it might also be stored in that test management solution. That's completely up to you. And finally, of course, we can also do something I would like to call requirements-driven development, meaning that if you have written your requirements, you have received the customer requirements, you have created system requirements out of them, you may have further derived software requirements and so forth. And if you have done all this and you want to really implement software requirements, as an example, you could create development tasks out of these software requirements, which are then handled, for example, in JIRA, and to use the capabilities of JIRA with regards to task management, which is quite comfortable in my opinion. And then the development team would get those tasks from JIRA somehow on their desk and can work in their IDE software development environment to implement those tasks derived from the software requirements. So as you can see, just those two disciplines already provide quite a lot of options. Of course, we are not able to show everything, all these different options in this short demonstration today. So what I would like to do, I would like to focus on these two more or less. So what we will see is that we will create those new features in JIRA, collecting the information from whatever stakeholders, and then we will carry this information over into Visure, and then we will see how this new features may influence the already existing requirements in Visure. And finally, we also provide some feedback about the status of those new features with regards to the requirements. To do the demo, we have prepared a demo with different roles, with different users, in order to try to split the different roles here in the example. So the first user I will be in a few seconds is Sharon. She is a business analyst and collects the new features and change requests from customers, which is done in our example in JIRA, because we are already using JIRA as a change request system. From there, we will import the change requests or the new features into Visure Requirements, which is used by Mark, the product manager, and he will then, of course, check the impact of those requests, and he will apply certain changes to already existing requirements using Visure Requirements. And finally, we will also take a look at Lucy, who is in charge of quality management or test management. And of course, whenever you have changing requirements, this may also impact the related test cases. And in our example, we have decided to, for the simple demo, we have decided to have the test management also been done in Visure. But as mentioned before, of course, this could also be done in HP Quality Center, for example. Then we would also use the integration platform to connect Visure to HP Quality Center. But that would be a bit more complex for such a quick demo. That's the reason why we decided to do the simple test management in Visure today. So that's how the demo looks like. So now it's time for the demo. So let's move this demo here to the main screen. So I hope you can now see Visure Requirements. I already started the tool here. What I will do now in the first step, I will connect to Visure Requirements as Mark, the product manager and Visure user in our example. I have prepared the system in a way that I can connect as Mark. Just in case you get lost during the demo, you can always see here in the title bar of Visure Requirements with which user and in which role I have been logged into Visure Requirements. So currently I'm Mark as a product manager. And what I can see here in Visure Requirements now is something we call the so-called predetermined view. So for each user group, in our case product managers, we can configure a certain view to be displayed to the user on logon whenever he logs in. In our case, this is a view displaying all the new features that have been imported from JIRA. So these are exactly the JIRA tickets, so to say, which have been imported somehow into the system. We will see later how this works. And yeah, this is how it looks like. A few explanations. I don't know whether you know Visure in detail already. Maybe just a few words how Visure is made of. So the main working area in Visure is this area here, which we call the grid view. It shows a certain subset of the data from the Visure database and some columns. So whenever you have a row selected here, we have an item, a so-called item, and those items can be linked later on. We will see this later. And yeah, and if I want to show information from the database, I can also configure the columns to be displayed. Each column typically represents one attribute. In Visure, each item automatically gets a certain code, which is the identifier of the item in Visure. Such an item in Visure, in our case, in the feature, a new feature, may have a name. It typically also has a description in place, and then you may have additional attributes, and that's completely configurable. In our case, I have a status attribute for the features. I have the ID of the JIRA, of the corresponding JIRA issue or feature, and in this case, I also decided to import the information who has created that ticket in JIRA originally, because I feel if you plan to work as Mark, if you plan to work on these features here, and you have not fully understood the intention of the feature, then you may want to ask the guy who originally enters the feature in JIRA, and that's why I decided to also transmit the information about the JIRA reporter. That's the guy who created the issue in JIRA, also over to Visure to have this kind of communication enabled. Okay, that's the way it works. We can see that there are a couple of issues already here. The last one is one I created this morning just for testing the integration. So we have this test object here, which is not very useful, but anyway, I forgot to delete that one, obviously. Now let's go to JIRA, and we log in to JIRA now as Sharon. Remember, Sharon was the guy or the lady who is in charge of collecting feature requests. She may talk to customers and get some input from the market somehow, and she's then using JIRA to create new feature requests. To be honest, I'm not the JIRA expert, so I cannot really explain a lot of details in JIRA, but what I can do here is, of course, create a new issue as I have logged in. In our case, the integration has been configured to synchronize the item or the issue type new feature. So I need to create a new feature now. Otherwise, I won't see anything in Visure because the configuration is done in a way that only new features will be synced. I may enter a summary here. For example, I want to give some input regarding a company logo to be displayed on certain screens of the software we are developing, for example. Of course, in JIRA, you may have quite a lot of fields you need to populate. I will only populate those fields we are currently syncing with Visure Requirements. However, you can, as mentioned, you can configure the integration in a way that all this information is synced if needed, but that's not the intention of this small demo. Therefore, I just need to enter now a text of the or description of the new feature. Let's do it this way. Our company logo, see further attachment, must appear on all screens, assuming that we are in charge of developing some piece of software. So that's it. And then maybe I will also help the guys developing this feature by means of letting them know how the company logo looks like. So you can attach a file here in JIRA to that issue, like this one here, and our nice Visure Requirements logo, just as an example. So this shall be our company logo in this example. And finally, I create the issue in JIRA, and as you can see above here, the issue SI44 company logo has been successfully created. If I like, of course, I can take a look at this new feature again with all its properties, including the attachment. The description is there. Everything is stored properly, of course. And then we have also a status which has been set to open by default, which is okay. We can see that Sharon has reported this issue. It has not been assigned yet, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. All the information I need is in place. So I can leave this application and switch back now to Mark, who is still in charge of taking care of the requirements for these new features. And we have configured this integration here in this example in a way that the update of the information in Visure will be done every 60 seconds. So that's also something you can decide how often you want to synchronize the information. And as you have seen, I just did a refresh of the current view. And as you can see, by magic, the new feature request we just have created as Sharon in JIRA immediately appears, more or less immediately appears within Visure Requirements here in this view, also displaying the new features. So we can see all the information that has been synced. In our example, it's the name, the company logo, which was the summary in JIRA. We have the description here in place. Our company logo must appear on all screens. We have the status, of course, in place. And we have the JIRA ID SI44, and we can see that this issue has been reported by Sharon. So in case we have a further question, we can just go ahead and ask her. Before continuing, I would like to log out first here from JIRA. If needed, if Mark is not satisfied with the information we already imported here, which is quite a lot, but if he's still not satisfied with this kind of information, he may even want to take a look at the issue in JIRA. So if he is enabled or if he is allowed to also use JIRA, he may also take a look at the JIRA issue by navigating from the Visure item to JIRA. Of course, he needs to log in here in JIRA, that's clear. But after he has logged in, he can even see all the details about the company logo issue in JIRA. So there is no real need to copy all the information over to Visure Requirements. I would always recommend to think about which information is really needed in Visure, and only this information gets passed, because in case something else is needed, there's still a way to navigate between the tools. Although it should be set up in a way that it is an exception to navigate between tools, because I typically prefer working in one tool and I don't like to work in many tools at the same time. But in case it is needed, we can just jump over. That was the intention here. So let's log out again from JIRA and go back into Visure Requirements, which is Mark's preferred tool to do the requirements management. And maybe he now wants to start working on this new feature request. So probably he would like to inform Sharon that he already started working on this new feature. So he may change the status of the new feature. In order to change the status, he needs to check out the item in Visure, and then he may modify the status to in progress, because he's now progressing this one. And by the way, of course, the information which is taken from JIRA, like the JIRA ID, is something I'm just clicking right now quite heavily on my mouse. This information is of course not editable for Mark in Visure. He's allowed to change the status in our example, but he's not allowed, of course, to change the JIRA ID or the name of the reporter. So even the reporter cannot be edited here. So there's no way to modify the information taken from JIRA. However, in our example, we decided that the status attribute can be set by Mark, in order to inform Sharon that we are now working on this company logo feature. Then he may need to check, of course, Mark may need to check his user requirement specification, which is already in place, whether he needs to do some modifications, or maybe he wants to add new requirements to support this new feature. And then, of course, those changes shall be linked to this JIRA ticket, and the easiest way to do so is by right-clicking the item here, selecting Start Relationship. Then we go over to the user requirement specification, because we need to check the user requirement specification now, what needs to be updated here. As Mark is typically in charge of this specification, he should somehow know about the content, of course, but maybe he doesn't remember exactly in which chapter of this entire documentation or entire specification he has already described information about the company logo. So maybe he just needs to search for it using the quick search. Typo. So as soon as I start typing company up here, you can see that Visure will filter all the information properly. We can go back to the entire specification by just removing the string here again, but the selection is kept here. So we found one requirement. On each product we develop, our company logo must be visible. The minimum size of the logo is 80 by 40. And maybe that's not feasible because the new company logo we have received by means of an attachment might be bigger. So maybe we need to change the size here by just editing the requirement. like 90 by 40, for example. Then we can check in the change here. Okay. And if you like, you can see this change, of course, in the version history. So whenever you modify information in Visure, a version history is kept, so you can compare the different versions, indicating, hoppala, this is the wrong one, sorry. Obviously I did this change already once. So if I do the diff here, we can see that we just changed from 80 to 90 millimeters in this example. This is the information you can get here. And yeah, finally, Mark has done his job, so to say. He has taken this new feature. He has taken a look in the user requirement specification. He adjusted the requirement specification accordingly, as mentioned, just as a simple example here. So Mark is currently done. By the way, I just forgot to show you something else here. I forgot to mention that also the attachments from JIRA can be transferred to Visure by means of associated files. So we have the same kind of feature as JIRA. JIRA uses the term attachments. We are using the term associated files. And if I select the item we previously generated as Sharon, I can see that I have also the image, the associated file here available. So you can even take a look at this nice picture here from Visure. Okay, so that was Mark working in Visure. Of course, we have seen now that Mark has changed the requirement. As mentioned before, there's also Lucy in place. Lucy is in charge of quality management, test management, and for this simple demo, we decided to use JIRA also for test management. But of course, she needs to check now whether all her test cases are still accurate. Since we have changed the requirement, there might be a need to adjust some test cases. But which of the thousands of test cases needs to be adjusted now due to the change Mark has done on the requirement? Pretty easy. We log in as Lucy now. And in my case, I have a predetermined view configured for quality managers. That's the role I am logged in now. I have a predetermined view now here in place, which is called acceptance tests suspects, meaning that only those test cases show up here which might be affected by a change that has been done recently to a related requirement. Because whenever you do a change in Visure requirements, all related items, even regardless whether they are also requirements or test cases, gets suspect. And this can be filtered in this way, so there's no need for Lucy to check all the 1,000 test cases she has in place. She just gets exactly the information she needs to work on. In our case, this single test case. And if I check the related items tab here, it shows me all the requirements to which this test case is related to. And in this case, we have 4 requirements that are covered by this single test case. However, we can also see that only one of those 4 obviously has been changed recently. It's exactly this one, the stakeholder requirement marketing number 10, company logo, exactly the one we just have modified as Mark. And Lucy is now able to just click on this single item here, and she can even see the description of that requirement down here. So there's even no need to move over to the requirement. She has the most important information is available here. She can read this description of the suspect of the requirement that causes the suspect link. She can read the description. She can check with her test case whether they fit or not. If they don't fit, she needs to adjust the test case, of course. In case no further modification is needed, she just needs to remove this check to tell the tool, hey, I have checked this suspect link, and with removing the check, I just confirm that I don't need to update the test case due to this change. Very easy way of working with Visure requirements thanks to the suspect links. So finally, you remember probably that Mark, when he started working in Visure, he has updated the status of the JIRA feature request to in progress. Yeah, let's check now whether Sharon is able to see this information. So I need to log in again as Sharon. Oops, sorry. Sharon. This is Sharon. Log in again. Hopefully she is able to find the issue she has created recently here in recent issues. Number 44 company logo. That's the one we have created in the beginning of the demo. And and as you cannot see is, give me a second. Probably I have forgotten one step. I think I know which one. Give me a second. Sorry for this. I need to log in as Mark again. Exactly. I forgot to check in the requirement. That's of course important. Whenever you do a change in Visure, you need to check out the item, do the modification, and then you should check in the item again to allow other users doing further modifications. And unfortunately, I forgot to check in the item here. As soon as I have done the check-in, the information is stored in the database, meaning that if now the synchronization between Visure and JIRA takes place, which also happens once a minute usually, then we should also see the new status in JIRA, of course. But unfortunately, I forgot to check in. Sorry for that. So now we probably have to wait a couple of seconds. As mentioned, it may take up to 1 minute, but I would expect to get the updated status back again. At least yesterday it worked. So please be a bit patient. Mm-hmm. 15 minutes ago, okay. Maybe I can reload this way. No, it's still open. Maybe it's also a refreshing problem. Okay, to be honest, I don't really know why the synchronization in the other direction doesn't work today. Yesterday it worked pretty well, to be honest. So I need probably to check why the sync does not take place in the other direction. Anyway, but that's typical with these kind of demos. If you have multiple users, if you have multiple tools, if you have integrations in place which needs to be configured, there's typically always some area where you have some issues. Sorry for that. As mentioned yesterday, it worked pretty fine. However, I hope you were able to see a little bit how such an integration may look like. Once again, it was just an example. You can configure it in a completely different way. It depends on your use cases. So first of all, before you start thinking about integrating tools, you need to think about the way you want to use the different products, because one thing is clear. In order to avoid these kind of issues I have right now, one thing is clear: you should make sure, ideally, that one piece of information, in this case not one item, in this case I mean one attribute, should be mastered in one tool. So there's typically the process should be in a way that a single piece of information should not be modified in both tools. Instead, we urgently recommend to have a dedicated workflow in place where it is clearly defined which information is mastered in which tool, and then we can prepare the configuration in a way that the information flows automatically between the tools. So I hope you were able to get a little bit of the information. I will now check the questions panel. I got a question here. Give me a second. Does the ALM platform provide an API where own tools can be integrated? That's a very good question. I guess there is a way to do so. I'm not entirely sure. I need to take this question offline and check with the guys who are in charge of the integration platform. But as far as I remember, there's also a way where customers may even create their own adapters, which is of course some effort. So sometimes it may also make sense to ask us to implement those adapters. But anyway, I think there is a way to do so. That was the only question I received so far. So I would really like to thank you very much for your participation today. And I hope you found some interesting information in this webinar. And of course, if you want to evaluate this solution somehow, there are plenty of ways to do so. Just get in contact with us. One thing we can do, we can offer a kind of hosted evaluation. This is exactly what I have done here. I have used a virtual machine which is somehow hosted on Amazon's web services. In fact, this is hosted in the US. I'm based in Germany. It's working pretty well, as you have seen, apart from this issue with the update of the status. Anyway, so that's one option we can offer. If you are interested in evaluating this solution, we can provide you a pre-configured environment by means of such a virtual machine, a hosted one. The other option is, of course, that you do evaluations in your own environment, which is, of course, a bit more effort because you need to do the installations. We do support there, of course, but it takes some more time, of course, on your side. Anyway, if you have any further questions in the near future, don't hesitate to contact us. It's no problem. We are willing to answer. One way to contact us is by sending an email to info@visuresolutions.com, or you can get in contact with me personally directly, of course, also using this email address, which is now shown on the screen. So I would really like to thank you for your participation now, and I hope you have an enjoyable remaining day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.